Hey there, card folk. Speedrobo here, and today I'm doing something really special, really fun, and really close to my heart. I am doing spell book profiles for my favorite game of all time, Zatch Bell the Card Battle. I got one request from one guy to show off my spell books, so I'm using that as an excuse to subject you all to it. So let's jump right in. This one is my Zeno spell book. This is one of my top tier spell books. You really can't do too much better than this. This is absolutely the kind of thing you would see at tournament way back in the day. Let's jump right in. To kick it off, you got to open with Marus. Basically, if you're playing competitive Zatch Bell, you don't really have a choice other than having your first Momoto be Marus. And that's entirely because of his ability. Pay 2 MB, negate the effect of an opponent's Momoto card of your choice. So, why is this so important? Well, it's so important because you run into degenerate shit like Feign. So Feign is a declare to use. Choose a Momoto card from your opponent's spellbook and send it to the discard pile. The effect can only be played once per game per player. So this guy straight up just lets you look through your opponent's entire spellbook and sack their key Momoto. If you don't have an answer for Feign, you automatically lose the game. The best answer for Feign is Marus. So you always want to open Marus. And he's here just to spend that 2 MP negate effect. And there's a ton of other Momoto card effects in this spellbook that are also, top tier that you want to have an answer for. So moving right along, we got Danny next. So what makes Danny so good? The reason why Danny is one of the best Momoto in the game is that he can attack without a spell. This means that it leaves your pages open for events, Moto, and partners. Like, you never have to run a single spell card in this book if you don't want to, entirely because Danny's going to be swinging 6 and 1 damage. Now, a lot of spells pack 2 damage, but the thing that you have to keep in mind about Zatch Bell is that your spells are never actually going to connect your opponent's spellbook unless you're already winning. At that point, it's a win. So your damage is always going to go straight into your opponent's Momoto. They are always going to sacrifice or protect because it's so easy to just tap the Momoto or pitch the Momoto that you don't need in order to not turn extra pages of your spellbook. Because if you start turning extra pages of your spellbook, your entire strategy gets off tempo. Like, if your opponent ever deals damage to you, you basically just scoop it up and go to game 2. Like, that's how intense. So with Danny swinging for 6, that's going to get around a lot of just basic defensive spells, or at least tie them. And yeah, no, for 1 MP, insanely good. Rembrandt, he's Marus's partner, and this guy lets you negate one of your opponent's attack spells. So why is this good? I was just talking about how you don't need spells. Well, you don't need spell cards, but a lot of other decks do. So other popular decks are Zatch Spell Spam, and a little something I cooked up, which was Robnos Spell Spam. So if you go up against Zatch Spell Spam, having a Rembrandt or 2 is... Next, we got Feign. We already talked about him. Everybody's going to have a counter to Feign, but you still want to run him because it's a noob. If you go up against anybody who doesn't know about this card, you just automatically win on page 3. Like, he's here, page 3, you win the game. Done. And the next card you need 4 of. You need 4 Professor Dartigans. If you don't have 4 Professor Dartigans, you can't really play Zatch Bell. There are a few budget options that are almost as good, and they are actually run in this book, and we will talk about them. I swapped out some of my Professor D for some of the budget options just to be able to show those off today. But you need 4 Professor D. He is a 0-cost attack and defense event. Select one of your opponent's Momoto cards. Your opponent can neither play any spells for the Momoto card nor apply the effect of that Momoto card until your opponent's next end phase. Insanely broken. Like, I love Zatch Bell so much because of how unique it is, but the balancing in the game is basically non-existent. Like, there's no connection between costs and effects and Professor D's. Next, we run Ponygon. So I called this a Zeno burn deck, but Zeno actually shows up a little bit later. We'll talk about that more later. So in this slot, if you want to run... If you have 4 Zeno, specifically this Zeno, you can pretty much take out all the Ponygons in here for him, but I personally really enjoy Ponygon because you can just sack him, and you turn one page of your opponent's spellbook. Boom, instant damage, which I already talked about how insane damage is, and if you start taking damage, you're in a really bad spot, and Ponygon just says, and you negate this effect. Do you have a Professor D or a Marus? Okay. If not, just get hit with it. Oh, here's another important thing to mention. that a lot of new players might not know about Zatch. It runs off of a Magic the Gathering style chain or stack system. So pretty much any effect you have on the table or in your spellbook, if it says defense, can be played during the opponent's turn. So for example, Marus can be used effectively on like an instant, which is important to know. So if you sack your Porygon, and your opponent then says, okay, I Marus it, your Porygon gets sacked and you don't get the effect. That's something important to keep. And now, normally I rail on player interaction systems that are like this because they are too interactive. There's a lot of ways that new players can get really annoyed and frustrated, and control decks become incredibly powerful in this player interaction system. Talked about that in the past. But it works so well in Zatch Bell because your opponent only ever has 2 cards that you don't know about. Only ever these 2 open pages that you don't know about, right? Pretty much everything that they can do is on the table. If you walk into your opponent completely ruining you with responding to something you did, odds are it's your fault because you didn't read their shit, right? That's something important to keep in mind. And part of the reason why Zatch Bell is such an insanely good game. The next card I have is Completed Job. Select 1 Momoto card in your discard pile, put it back in any empty pocket of your spellbook. Hey, did you just hit your opponent with your Porygon? Want to do it again for 1 MP? Yes, please. Next we have Rembrandt. We already talked about Rembrandt. Okay, so Brutal Tia. Brutal Tia is a budget option if you don't have Professor D. Same cost, same timing as D. And pretty much the same effect, except that the Momoto card you target can still use their effect. It only shuts off spell cards. And a lot of time that's good enough. So if you don't have 4 Professor D, Brutal Tia as an uncommon from set 2, if I remember correctly, will absolutely for you. Another thing that's important for new people to know is that you might notice that I'm only running 1 event on each of the pages, and that's because you can only play 1 event card per turn. That's something to keep in mind. Events are limited to a hard once. Next, we have Zeno, the namesake of the deck. So you send this guy to the discard pile, and you injure one of your opponent's Momoto cards. Does your opponent have a tap Momoto card, and you don't like that? Okay, it's dead now. Boom, done. Like, this Zeno is absolutely insane. Blanking on what set he came. I don't think he was set 1. I'm genuinely drawing a blank on what set he came from. He's not the promo from the spellbook. No, he's not. I don't think so. I don't remember specifically where you get this Zeno, but if you have 4 of this Zeno, you can run 4 of it instead of your Ponygons, because this Ponygon that I'm running is the promo Ponygon from the special Ponygon spellbook collection, so he can be a little bit hard to get. You might not have 4 of him. And so Ponygon and Zeno are pretty much interchangeable. They do generally the same job, just in different ways. And then, of course, with Zeno, we run Completed Job, so you can machine gun one of your opponent's cards off the board if they don't have a response. Next, we got Professor D and Ponygon. Listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep doing what you're doing. Next, we got Rembrandt and Brutal Tia. Again, lock down your opponent's options. Great. All right, now we're on to the Majestic 12 cards. The Majestic 12 cards work a lot like partner cards, but you don't need a Momoto to attack. And this guy has exactly the same effect as Ponygon. So yeah, we run Lightning Eye as well. Big Relief. Turn one of your Momoto cards to normal status and get 2 MP. This effect can only be applied when 2 or more Momoto cards are in play. So Big Relief gives you the MP gain of Yellowtail with the healing power of Ivy. It's absolutely fantastic if you don't have Big Relief. Big Relief is another staple card. I recommend you have 4 of it. Partially because it's a pretty good answer to Zeno, and you're going to run into a lot of Zeno. Trust me. So if you can just heal your Momoto card back up with Big Relief, it's a good card. Another Completed Job, just, help cycle some stuff. It's good. No complaints there. And Let's Get Out of Here. So Let's Get Out of Here, defensive spell that works for anybody, and you flip 2 coins. If you get ahead, you just completely cancel whatever spell card they played. Solid card. There's other events and other partners that you play in this spot. I put Let's Get Out of Here to hit my opponent with a bit of a mix-up. Because if they're running hard event counter or hard partner counter. Let's Get Out of Here can help fix that. If they're running spell counter, I've got all of my other partners up here and all of my other events up here to help deal with that. So it's here for the mix-up. Lightning Eye and Rembrandt, can't go wrong. Brutal Tia, we already talked about that. Good Professor D substitute. And my Lightning Eye that I got from my Toys R Us event, absolutely gorgeous card. One of my favorites in the entire game. This guy's kind of like my signature card, kind of like my, you see this card show up in this foil, you know it's a Speedrobo. Lightning Eye's insane. Like, just deal damage here. Completed Job, again, really good card. And Let's Get Out of Here. Big Relief. Already talked about that. And now we're actually running, now that we're in the end of the spell book, we're actually going to be running a few attack spells with Maruse. If we beat the opponent down to this point, odds are they've been having a really bad time, and they're going to start taking some damage with our Garons. Let's Get Out of Here, Garon. Let's Get Out of Here, Garon. And then on the final page, keep in mind anything you put on your final page is actually free. Iganzu, Garanzu, one last giant attack just to close out the game. And there you have it. Speedrobo, Zeno, Burn. Have fun. If you have any questions about Zatch Bell, hit me up in the comments below. If you think my spellbook's kind of bad, you're kind of right. Actually, there's a lot of points in here where I put in completed job, and I'm not sure why I did that. Those might have been placeholders about it, because I think I'm running more than 4 completed job. Hold on. That's 2 completed job. 3... No, I'm running exactly 4 completed jobs. Never. Yeah, I think the completed jobs on this page are kind of like completely overkill, because I'm not going to be able to turn back those pages. Why did I do that? Now that I think about it. Yeah, run something else in this slot. What would I run in this slot? Let's see here. Let me think about that. Oh, more Zeno. Yeah, just put in more Zeno. More Zeno and more Polygon in those slots. I would say no, because I'm already at my 8 Momoto cap, aren't I? Because you can only run 8 Momoto. Yeah, anyway. I didn't think that through, so this is kind of a bad ending to my profile, but fuck it, whatever. Do the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you next time.